Hello and welcome to Get a Shift On, your podcast all about career change and career transition. This week I was delighted to welcome Paul Banks from Javelin Content. Paul and I met on LinkedIn and we'd had a really good conversation and I felt like there was a really good connection. I wanted to get Paul along to share his journey of career change from when he started in retail all the way up to starting his business, Javelin Content. He shares a lot of information with us about that journey, how he felt under challenge, and that he just needed a way out, like so many people feel. And that's really what this podcast is all about, helping people like you who feel stuck in a job, stuck in a career. I want to show you there is a way out. I'm really grateful to Paul for his time. It was a really interesting conversation and I hope you enjoy it as well. Please do like and share and subscribe. I want to help as many people as possible. Enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Get a Shift On. This week I am really pleased to welcome Paul from Javelin Content. Paul, thank you very much for joining me and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me along. It's not often I get to unleash the bonkersness of what goes on in my world, so appreciate the invite. Thank you. Is that a word?
Excellent. I look forward to the bonkersness. Paul, you're in Javelin Content. I love the fact you call yourself the Chief Smile Supplier. I absolutely love that. Where did the inspiration come from that job title?
Do you know what? Like, so many people out there are just so focused on driving sales and driving numbers. And I've spent most of my life in and around customer service and customer experience. And I know that the numbers will take care of themselves as long as you make your customers smile. And that, for me, is the crucial difference between us and a lot of other people. And the successful businesses and not successful businesses too is I want my clients, when they get the outputs, to have a big smile on their face. And I want to be able to read that smile through the email that comes back. And if I haven't got that, then something's gone wrong somewhere. Either I've set false expectations or we haven't delivered. And for me, that's a real easy way to just stand apart from the crowd without putting clown shoes on, right? That's what we all want, to be different. And I love being different, David.
Do you have clown shoes on underneath your desk?
I don't even have shoes on. I've got socks on though. Anybody trying to conjure that mentally,
Fair
I
enough.
do have socks on. Rest assured.
Well, we'll move on from that conversation pretty quickly then, just in case. Tell me, Paul, how do we get to where you are today? What have you done? Where have you been? And let's talk about Javelin and how you got there.
There's a condensed version, which I'll not bore your listeners with the full details. Many years ago, I studied as a software engineer, and then the dot-com bubble burst as I finished university, which meant I never got to put any of that software engineering into practice. I then went and tried to sell kitchens. Turns out I'm really bad at selling kitchens because I can't lie, which was a prerequisite for the job, although I didn't realise that at the time. And we were trying to sell 15 grand, send 15 grand invoices to people for what was a 3 grand kitchen, which wasn't much fun. I didn't make any sales in that business whatsoever. I went to a call centre. I went spend 11 months there, enjoyed it to an extent. It's where I met my wife, who we're still together 20 something years later, so we've done something right. But she's also the reason why I no longer work there, because we couldn't work together in that environment. Left that and then joined retail on a graduate program. And for my sins, spent the next 15 years in supermarket world, from one end of it to the other. Everything from running stores to KPI management for the region, to national theft and loss prevention, back to stores again. I did admin, we did warehousing, I did a bit of everything. And I think that's been a theme for my life, is I kind of like, there is no specific plan as such in my head, but I'm always looking for the new thing that's shiny, that's fun, where I can learn. In and amongst that, I was encouraged by a good friend of mine to join the volunteer police force. So I was a special constable for Durham Constabulary for a decade. And again, just like my day job, I did everything from neighbourhoods policing to response policing, drugs, dogs, dog section, traffic unit, accident unit, substance misuse, and pretty much everything in between. Loved it. Thoroughly enjoyed that. And then probably for the last 7 or 8 years of retail, I was kind of a bit remiss. I was a bit under-challenged is how I put it. I couldn't quite put my finger on where I wanted to be within the business, and knew that I needed to branch out, and was just kind of looking for the next thing. And I got a call from a guy who I somehow met him on LinkedIn. And to this day, I've no idea where he came from. He just appeared in my connections list. I only had 150 connections at this point, and he was posting every day. So his ridiculous jokes and dad memes and GIFs about technology were the only things I saw when I opened LinkedIn, because nobody else was posting. And he rang me one day and said, can we have a chat? I said, yeah, like you're the only person on LinkedIn I actually speak to. Why not? 6 weeks later, I joined his AI SaaS business as a senior solutions consultant. I had no idea what that meant at the time. This was right back at the beginning of COVID in the pandemic. And I set out on a journey to, first of all, understand what B2B meant, because that's where I was. You know, I haven't worked front lines of retail for so long. I had no idea there was a whole other world out. And where we had a lot of success in building the sales pipeline for that business wasn't from cold calling, it wasn't from cold emails. It was in attracting people to us and creating huge amounts of awareness through video content. So not only did I kind of have to build the leads list and identify who our target audience were and demo the product, which was a 90-minute demo, which is real fun. Really dry, hard statistical product. It's fun. And keep it entertaining for the big wigs. We were selling to enterprise business. We were selling to senior C-suite. And nobody wants to be sold to anymore. Like that's a given. Nobody wants to be sold to anymore. We want to do our own research. We want to discover things ourselves. And we want to talk when we have questions that can't be answered anywhere else. And so we set out to lead them down that path, to help them be able to research us in their own time, in their own way, and find us when they had a problem that we solved. Thoroughly enjoyed that business. It was great fun working in a startup. They started to grow up. I didn't. I'm proud ADHD, father of 2 boys. Eldest is definitely ADHD, although he's not confirmed yet. And I've been on a bit of a journey of self-discovery on that. But part of that is me being an absolute rebel and refusing to be told what to do. I like to be able to go off and do my own thing. And so I did. I said, sorry guys, I don't want to run this past marketing anymore. Now that we have a marketing team and somebody's saying no to me, it doesn't feel right. So I'm going to go and do what I want. And Javelin was born. That was February 2023. August of 24 brought my wife into the business. It turns out we can work with each other as long as we're in separate rooms.
She's not hiding around the corner.
No. Well, I don't say anything she doesn't know to her face. Like we both agree, it's not good for us to work in the same room together. It's not fun, and that kind of brings us up to where we are today. So it's been a journey, but essentially I took the fun bits of what I enjoyed from the AI SaaS consultancy business that I was working in, and built a whole business out of that. So I was fortunate enough, I got paid to learn how to do it for 4 years. And then when it no longer fit with their business model, I went and launched my own business with it, because I still, to this day, thoroughly love getting behind the scenes of people's content.
Amazing. Explain to me then what Javelin actually does. How do you help your customers? How do you make them smile?
So I think in this day and age, everybody understands the behavioral science behind why we should be on video. Video on LinkedIn, on YouTube, like videos everywhere in the current day and age. And it's kind of like being able to have one-to-one Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, but instead of just one-to-one, you're actually talking to many people. It's one-to-many relationship, and it's really, really efficient, really effective. And it connects you on an emotional level. Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, we'd have used a lot of brand, used a lot of logos, we'd have done animations and cartoons and relied on text. But being on video allows me to look you in the eyes, you can see whether what I say is genuine, whether I've got energy behind it, whether I'm passionate about what I'm saying, and how much I believe in it. And there's no other medium out there that can compete with that. And yet so many people will do things like, you'll go on a podcast, be a guest, and then do nothing with the content that comes back from it. They'll assume the host will go away and do all of that and do all the promotion for them. People will be a speaker at a conference, or they'll be a keynote speaker, or they might do just an interview for themselves and pop it on a YouTube channel and do nothing else with it. I describe what we do as, if that's a wet sponge, we're just wringing that sponge dry and getting all of that lovely, juicy content out of there. I can guarantee, if you've done any sort of video work in the past, you're sat on an absolute gold mine. Sorry, my bad.
That's
My
right.
process to make that really, really simple for people. There are a few things that stop people getting involved with video content. One is, I don't want to be on camera. I look awful. I sound awful. Join the club. 800 hours of YouTube video later, I don't like me any better. It still sucks, but I know it works. So you've got to keep the faith. Time, which is fair. Not everybody has the time to even learn how to do it or to get good at it. Technology gets in the way. Some of the tools can be, although they're less so now than ever, still are quite technical. And if you're not interested in learning them, you're not going to be able to pick it up quickly or easily. And then it's other things like having a process around things to be efficient and effective with it. Nobody has a clue how to do these things. And why should you? It's not your business. That's not why you went into business. You went into business to do this thing that you're super passionate about where you can help people. Social media, awareness, authority, marketing, sales, accounting, bookkeeping, all of these things are just tack-ons that they're necessary evils for a lot of people, is how we describe them. So what we do is we create a cascade of content from your long-form videos. We can either help you record them, we can take pre-existing content that you've already got, or if you're lucky enough to have a podcast or want to start a podcast, we can use those kind of interview content to generate more content that you can shake a huge stick at. And if you have a look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see I regularly do this to the algorithm on LinkedIn because we're supposed to post once a day. I very rarely post less than 3 times, very rarely. And I don't sit at the computer stressing about content every single day. I batch create it, I create it in bulk, I post it out every day. And if I have a week like I have this week where I'm nose to the grindstone on client delivery, my content's going out anyway. And I can pop on when I've got 10, 15 minutes, engage with people, start conversations away for, in a couple of weeks' time, still be present, still help people be aware of me. And yet I'm delivering for my clients. And I haven't got to be worrying and anxious about, am I making enough noise about what I'm doing? The tall and short of it is that doesn't have to be hard to do. It can be quite daunting if you're doing it on your own. We're here to hold your hand. And I like to talk about the idea of record and walk away. We'll help you get to the point where you've recorded your content. And I want you to just walk away, leave us to it. And in a couple of days, I will deliver back to you all sorts of digital files. Now, what I mean by that is everything from clips and reels, which is the obvious things that everybody thinks of when you think of long form content. But we'll also, I didn't want to just have people come back and go, oh, Paul, we want to be active on TikTok now or Instagram. Can you do the video that we did 6 months ago? Can we do that on vertical format so I can do it on Instagram? I don't want to do that. That's boring for me, right? I want to just get it out of the way and done with and never revisit that video again. So we just give you it back. It's not extra. It's not, it's all part of the package. Landscape, square, portrait, so you can go wherever you want to go. We pull out things like audiograms. So if you really do want to just start without the video, maybe a picture with karaoke text and a waveform, we help you with that. If you will have said things during that video, I can guarantee that are quite inspirational and inspiring. I never thought I'd say that about something I'd recorded. I'm adamant that was not me. But turns out, I can find that stuff in there for us. And it's actually really good at finding the things that we said, word for word, that in their own context and put on a nice graphic, look really professional. Instead of having to quote, I don't know, Simon Sinek or whoever, Alex Hormozy, we love quoting those sorts of people, inspiring people. Actually, why don't you quote yourself? Because then you position yourself as an expert. So graphics around that, we can animate those graphics and make them a little bit more eye-catching. And all of the materials that you'd ever need to get it out there in the wild. So, if you want to put it on YouTube, anybody who's uploaded a video to YouTube knows it's a bit of a daunting experience because in theory, you just upload the video, but then you need a description that goes with the video and you need keywords that go with that and you need a thumbnail that goes with that. We do all of that for you. It's just in the box. Don't worry about it. It's there to copy and paste. So that's the principle behind what we do at Javelin. And like I say, we support with podcast enablement, as I call it now, a slimmed down version of that for a weekly or a fortnightly podcast. We support with getting it out there for them as well, because again, one of the other things I find with people is we love getting the content. It's great, it's amazing, but you still need to get it out there. Don't be the bottleneck. So we can help with that, or we've got partners that can help with that as well, because I think it's, there's nothing worse for me. I say I don't care about the money. I do care about the money. Clearly, we all care about the money, but it's not why I do what I do. When I get a client who gets content from me and then I wait with bated breath to see them post it on their profile, because that makes me super proud. And I know I've done something good for them. We're helping them shout about what they're doing. And when I get the odd client that just doesn't manage to do that, it's really frustrating for us. So again, the other side of things is how can we help you get it out there as well? So that's us. I mean, my why, David, is around helping people make better decisions. That's what drives Javelin. Ultimately, like I said, it's, if I don't have the answers or I can't do it myself, I will have the people to hand who can help you get there. But generally, you've got the answers within you.
And extracting out of them is the key part to that, I guess. And making them smile, as you said, but also it must be very nice when you smile, like you said, when you see your content reposted, and that must make you smile. I just want to clarify one thing for me, for everybody listening. Did you say you post 3 times a day on LinkedIn?
At least. And I can guarantee you that the cumulative views, comments, and likes are better than what I would get if I just posted once a day. You just get, it's kind of almost shared between your posts, but you still get more traction per post than. But there's a difference between just pumping out content for content's sake and content that connects with your audience. And it's took me some time to get where I am now, to build up enough of a library of the right kind of content with the right messaging aimed at the right people and talking about things in the right way that helps to build that engagement. Because I was there on day one with 0 likes as well as everybody else, right? Like, we've all done it.
Yeah.
It's awful. I'd say video 1's the hardest. It's not. Video 2's the hardest because you've already got 0 likes and engagement on video 1 and you're still posting another one out. That's pretty daunting. It does work eventually.
And I think I saw in one of your newsletters that came out this week maybe about what to post and the content to post. And I guess a lot of what you do is helping people understand what to post so it isn't just content for content's sake.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not a strategy person, right? Like, I dislike strategy. My brain really doesn't want to do strategy. Now, the more clients I get in that kind of B2B, I guess you'd call it a content interview style space, right? Pretty much everybody wants that strategy to go with it. So I've had to kind of train myself in how to help people with that side of things. And we've got a lovely senior BBC editor who works with us. She kind of helps facilitate with some of that as well. But I think the important thing for me that I've realized is, I've been pumping out content for 2 years. I've had a chance to trial a lot of stuff, see what works and what doesn't. And then what I've come to realize is, one, you've got to be passionate about what you're saying. Because if you haven't got that passion in what you're saying, it still lands flat with everybody who's listening. But also, you've got to lead them down the garden path with how to get to your services or your product or whatever it is that you're trying to sell. That can be quite a daunting, like from the outside, from not having recorded any, that's really daunting. Like, there's so much that you want to say, you want to cover, you want to do it all at once. And how do I break it down? And how do I prioritize what's first? And my advice is just to keep that really, really simple and just get started, because you'll start to feel, as soon as you start recording stuff and getting it out there, you'll start to feel what's resonating, what feels right to work with, what's hard but needs to be done, what's hard and we actually shouldn't be doing this yet. And the biggest tip I give people at that point is stop trying to talk about your products and services straight away, because that's mega hard. That is mega hard, and that will cause retake after retake after retake, because we know how important that is to present ourselves in the right light. It's really hard. Start with why you do what you do, because that's ultimately the most important bit anyway. Why do you do what you do? Because that's going to attract people, even if they don't realize they're going to be customers yet. They're going to align with that and go, oh, yes, that's the sort of person I need to know. That's the sort of business I want to align with. Then you can start with some of the other stuff bit by bit, but chunk it up. Don't try and do everything at once.
When you help people with that trial and error process, how do you cope, or how have you coped in the past where you have, I guess, an error or a fail of a video? How do you kind of get over that? What mindset do you think about to move forward and go, do you know what, that one's done. How do I move on?
I once had a client who's in his first video, he's a very confident speaker, but was quite anxious about recording. So he recorded in his kitchen, and behind him in the kitchen is French patio doors out to his garden. And in his garden, he's got 2 dogs running about and playing in the background. And I thought, I wouldn't have had the dogs out there, but I can understand why they're not in the kitchen at the same time. About 15 minutes into the video, over his left shoulder, you see dog number 1 get into position, let's call it, right at the crucial point of what he's talking about as well. And I end up having to green screen him and try and replace his background to kind of take that bit out. But it does happen. And we've had clients where, even though they're very, very confident and articulate public speakers, the moment you press record, everybody gets nervous and anxious and starts to use a lot of what we call filler words, like ums and and hesitate before they say what they say because they're thinking about things. I think the biggest thing for me is setting up in the right way. So just relax an environment, helping people just take the pressure off. We're going to edit everything. Nothing's live. Nothing you say can't be undone. It's all on the table to be content, but we can take out the bits that's not suitable and just removing some of that pressure that we'll heap on ourselves, whether we like it or not. But then once you've done one, I think it's important for me to be like quite gentle with people, because in the moment you probably think you've done quite well. You don't even realize. I used to do it all the time, ums and ers. I mean, I'll get a count now on how many ums and ers and filler words are in a piece of content, so I know how much editing I'm going to have to do when I look at that. And it is, you've kind of, without, I almost don't directly address it. but I help give them coping techniques that kind of take their mind away from things and help them focus more. Some people try and be too scripted, and you can see their brain spinning while they try and think of what it is that we're supposed to be saying next. Some people don't have enough script and they kind of go off piste and travel onto things. But it really is about just kind of having that, I think, like a really good relationship at the heart of it all. I see most of my clients as friends now, to be honest. There's very few of my clients who are with me now, been with me more than a couple of months, that don't become friends, because I just want it to be that sort of relaxed, informal environment. I need you to be able to talk to me, and I need to be able to talk to you. We should never have any white elephants. I'm not going to do editing for people where they repeatedly make the same mistakes, and I'm not going to tell them about it. It has to be addressed for you to get better, but it's a learning journey for all of us. None of us start. Your first video will be fairly awful, not going to lie. Everybody's first video is fairly awful. Some are more awful than others. I look back at the podcasts I first did when I joined, 2020, when I joined that business and I started launching that podcast. They were awful. I hadn't got a clue how to host. My questions were like vague. I didn't know how to get to the thick of the meat that people wanted to listen to. And it's just iteration more than anything is what gets you there. Just get that 1% better each time. Don't worry about being perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. We're all on a journey to get where we need to be.
I think that's great advice. And that 1% change, super important. And you're right, that first video, I dread to think what my podcast looked like. So give me another 10 years and I'm sure all will be well. And you can give me some tips and tricks on that. I have no doubt. And I should try not to use any filler words when I speak. When I edit my own podcast, I realize how much I do say. So I should try not to say any, and I'll just be silent. Going back to when you were in retail and you said that you needed to branch out and you just felt like something different was needed. How did you go from thinking about that to actually taking those steps and moving forward?
The first thing that I really did that got me out of the place, although I didn't realize it at the time, was a friend of mine who was like a slightly higher level manager than I was. She was head of supply chain, had gotten out and landed herself in a recruitment role where she was recruiting for roles that she'd held in her career. And I remember ringing her up one day and just going, Mel, how did you get where you are? And her advice was to network on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, in the moment, that's really great advice. Thank you so much. All right, okay, on LinkedIn, networking, headhunted. Right, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to go away and do that. And then I remember sitting there in front of LinkedIn going, yeah, okay, now what? What do I do? I've got 154 connections. Who should I? And I think the hardest part at that point is you can only ever see yourself doing what you do right now, or in a different company, in a different industry maybe, but a very similar role. And I can only ever see myself being a store manager or a KPI manager or a loss and theft prevention officer at another retailer. And I was like, it feels like jumping out of the fire and out the frying pan and into the fire. Like, surely I'm better where I am. Then I know what I've got here. I know who I can trust and who I can't. And I know the procedures. I don't have to learn from scratch. It was probably another year or so before I even really thought about LinkedIn again. And I started writing things I started to write some leadership posts because I thought, you know what, it's one thing I'm an expert at, right, is being a leader. I've done it for 15 years. I've loved developing people, watching people, bringing them on. So why not start offering some advice on that? And I remember writing my first article. And I got a Monday morning back to work, and I wish it was Sunday morning probably. Sunday morning back at work, and I got a phone call from the head of HR. You released an article on LinkedIn. Can you make sure that all future articles come through me? No. So I refused to write any more articles because I'm not running them by people. It's my personal opinions. And I'd made sure to make sure that it was like there was no reflection on the business in there. It was just generally my experience and guidance. Right, no, I'm not doing that. So I'll not release any more. And again, probably another 6 months passed. And there was a feeling building within me that I needed to do something else. I was growing more and more frustrated. I was taking it out on other people. I was no longer who I should have been. I was miserable, burnt out, tired, grotty. I'd probably get home. I mean, sometimes I'd not get home till 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'd be out of work the next morning for 6 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Barely saw my family. My eldest was only 2 or 3 at that point in time. I was driving an hour each way to work. And I was just like, I snapped because I was just like, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. There's got to be something out there. And I kind of came to a realization at that point that I fleshed out a bit more after I'd left, that it wasn't about finding another job that ticked the same boxes I had now. It was about finding a job that relied on the same skill sets that I could demonstrate. And that was a really big leap. However, the The problem I still had at that point was I was the only one that could see that. The recruitment managers that I was applying to couldn't see it. And I didn't know how to approach them individually. I didn't know how to use LinkedIn properly to get behind the scenes, create conversations, get my name in there and approach people in a way that differentiated me from anybody else. I was just hitting easy apply on everything and wondering why I was getting nothing. It was very, very frustrating and disheartening, to be fair. Like, I think by the time I left retail, I was pretty much broken. I needed some time to just find myself again.
And I think that's a story that I hear so many times, time after time. People just feel broken. And you said you just snapped, you felt burnt out, you felt miserable. Again, that is just something that I hear all the time. And I think it takes us to get to that point to know that we need to move on. And that's it. And sometimes that is, I say all it takes, but that is that final bit of the jigsaw just breaks everything. You mentioned your skill set. How aware were you of the skills that you had and how transferable did you think they were? Did you have to reassess what there was you could actually do, or were you able to have them and move forward with them, other than clicking easy apply, which we know is not great?
It's funny, like, no matter what role I'd done in the career, I've been good at it. And that's not because I'm super intelligent or anything like that, or super academic. It's because if I get my teeth stuck into something, I think this goes back to neurodiversity again. If I get my teeth stuck into something and I believe in what I'm doing, I will learn to be good at it. And I'll learn faster than anybody else because I can't stop thinking about it until I've all dropped into my head and I'm in place and I know what I'm doing. So I kind of had this awareness that it didn't really matter what job role I was going to have, as long as I believed in what I was doing, got trained in it properly, and I could go out there and sleep easy on a night knowing that I'd done a good day's work. So really the skill sets for me were quite hard to articulate, because how do you convey that to someone? Give me a job, I'll be good at it. It doesn't really sit well with the hiring managers, right? I know in an interview that might go down all right. Like, there's a way of articulating that in an interview. You've got to get to the interview first. You know, this is pre-AI, so there was no ChatGPT to go to. What skill sets do I have? I spent a long time kind of looking at ideas on the internet, listening to people who've been in retail and gotten to other roles and jobs. And to be honest, from the inside, it all kind of feels very fluffy and airy and not very achievable, and the sort of things that people say when they've made success, but not the steps that they actually followed to get where they were. Which is, you know, I see people like Alex Hormozy doing that all the time. I think he's got some brilliant ideas. But do I think for a second that the stuff he preaches about now is how he got where he is? I don't think so. I think more than anything, you've got to have that when a door opens, you walk through it. And, you know, some people call that fate. Some people call that divine destiny. Whatever your take is on that. I'm not religious. I'm not, you know, I just, when an opportunity opens, I'm a big believer that you have to walk through the door before it closes, because it might never open again. And so, yes, you could say that I was lucky that somebody looked for my skill set and reached out to me and asked me to jump on a call. But I could have easily been any one of my colleagues who would have just said no thanks to that phone call. So, yes, I needed that chance. But when that chance came, I grabbed it with both hands and took it. And I think that is probably as important as identifying that skill set. So, to your point around the skill set, like, there's the obvious stuff that you put on a CV. But I think the most important thing for me is trying to understand why you do what you do. And like, the transformational moment for me came after I'd already gotten out. And I remember walking along listening to an audio book, and I'd always been a big fan of Simon Sinek, but I found Start With Why incredibly frustrating because there's nothing actionable in that book. It's a great bunch of idioms and ideas and frameworks, but there's nothing actionable in it. And that's incredibly frustrating for a doer like me. And then I came across Find Your Why. Find Your Why is a workbook that sits behind all of that, and it explains step by step how to get where you are, usually for a group environment. And I just did it myself while I was out walking. I was asking myself all these questions and things. And I remember stopping. I was about 5 minutes up the road, just getting into the farmer's fields, and I stopped. And I had an oh my God moment, because I realised that everything that I'd done to date had this one thread, two threads I think it was at the time. I've worked it into one now, but one thread running through everything. And I wasn't actually a jack of all trades or a generalist as I'd been described in the business. I'd been looking for more of this thing. And once I figured out what that thing was, it was like a watershed. I just felt pressure just lifted off me. Like, because I was no longer that loser who'd just gone from job to job to job to job. which is how I've been portrayed in the business, I've been seeking that thing, that little thing that was part of each of those jobs, and I've been trying to find a new role that did more of that thing. And once I found that, which was to help people make better decisions so they can live their best life or most fulfilled life. And sometimes that's me helping them make the decision. Sometimes it's me coaching them to make the decision themselves. Sometimes it's me pointing them to the right people who can help them. Sometimes it's me providing them with some link to a software that will help them make those decisions, right? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that's the bit that drove me. Coaching, development, leadership, all of that. And once I'd had that flash, I thought, you know what? If I was ever in that situation again where I was looking for a new role, that would be the central thread that I wish I knew 4, 5, 10 years ago, that would have helped me identify where I needed to go next, and would have been the thing I wrote my CV around to help stand out. And I wish I'd known that then. And that, to me, also, ironically, sounds like the kind of fluff I'd have probably laughed at 10 years ago.
There is a place for fluff and faff. We both know that. But it takes that courage that you speak about to get to that point and to understand and how to find that way. And something I resonate with completely, because I think I've kind of been through that transformation myself. And isn't it funny that there are so many of us who just go along, do different jobs, have blindly just go, and we know we're missing something, but we don't know what it is. But it takes that jump to then look back. What advice would you give to someone who's stuck, knows there's more, but can't see that future them? How do you give that advice back to them?
Really easy, David. Really easy. There's one thing that you can do if you're stuck in that moment. One, you need help. Not everybody, and I don't mean you have to pay through the nose for coaching and months of development to get there. You need help from someone. You need to ask someone's advice. You need to pick their brains. That action, that puts you in what I call the 2% club. 98% of people will just bumble along in their lives being miserable. That's fine, but that's for everybody else as far as I'm concerned. I want to be in that 2%. But of that 2%, David, 98% of people will do nothing with that information. So if you want to be that person that gets out of where you are now to what's possible, you need to be in the 2x2 club. You need to ask for advice and you need to take action on it. And if you take the action on it, the people who you've asked for advice will see you take that action, and the respect that you will get for even trying, even if it doesn't work out, the respect you'll get from trying will get you a lot of doors opened. For me, I used to spend a lot of time when I first got out of retail trying to help people extricate themselves from retail, because I knew I could see them a mile off. I'd love to try and help more people in that boat, because I think retail has so many amazing transferable skills that the world needs. There is nothing more frustrating than when somebody does actually, I kind of pestered people to help them. You know, I wanted to help them, and I get on a call with them, I give them advice, and give them some things to do. And a month later, I touch base. What have you done then? Oh, well, you know, it's been busy. We're all busy. How much do you want to get out? There's nothing more frustrating than somebody who complains about the situation but then refuses to do something about it. That's my biggest bugbear. Don't be that person. Either accept where you're at and decide that you don't want to do anything about it, get on with it, or decide you want to do something about it. Ask for the advice, listen to the advice, try your best to put it into practice. And yes, it'll be extra work, and you're probably already tired, miserable, burnt out, and fed up. But if you ever want that to change, you've got to take that step. You've got to. It doesn't matter what it costs you. You've got to get out.
Sound advice. I think that's really very good. And it kind of comes back. Someone said to me, "How rusty is that rusty nail?" You know, if it really is that bad, if things are really, really miserable, you will do anything to actually get out. And I love that 2x2, and ask and then take action. I think I might steal some of that, if that's all right with you.
Feel free, David. I don't ever intend to get into career advice myself, so there you go. You can take that and run with it.
How important is LinkedIn for people to ask for that help?
Like I wouldn't have a business without LinkedIn, right? So first of all, it is the most important. And that's hard to say. That's a bit of pill to swallow, because I know that if I got cut off from LinkedIn tomorrow, I don't know how I'd manage to survive on that. I'd have to really reinvent the business. So it is super important. But I tend to find that people go about starting on that process the wrong way. And it's really hard to see any other angle to do it. So when I left retail, I was trying to build out. So I was employed initially as a retail expert, subject matter expert for retail, for AI and consulting. And I was trying to build a connection with businesses and companies where I had no network whatsoever. And I needed advice. I needed market research on how to do that best. And there are so many people out there that go out and just ask and ask and ask and ask and offer nothing in return. And the challenge I had with that was, well, okay, so if I'm asking and I'm offering nothing in return, how do I change that? Because I've got nothing to offer. Literally, I've worked in supermarket all my life. I can tell you how to stack cucumbers, and I can tell you how to rotate stock and order things and manage people. And then it hit me. It was a combination of, Paul, you've got leadership under your belt. You've got that skill set. You can offer that to people. That's helpful. But also, if you're speaking to enough people, you can connect people. So if you're having conversations with people, it doesn't matter what skill set you've got, make a note of who you're speaking to, what their job title is, and who it might be useful for them to meet. And I guarantee as you go along and network more with people, you'll start to come across other people who need to meet that person, or they'll be the person that person needed to meet, and you can connect them together. And that is more valuable than any skill set that you can learn. That is genuine connection, genuine networking. But I must admit that first plunge into, I need some help, and I know you charge for this stuff, but I need to get going. What do I do to get going? That is the hardest step, because you feel like a sponger. You feel like you're taking from people. And a lot of people will be quite cynical about you also because of the 2x2 club. And because they'll have helped people in the past who've done nothing with that advice. So why should I share it with you? So if I was going to give any advice on getting started on that process, it would be connect with people who might be able to help you. Not hiring managers necessarily. People who are like yourself, David, who've got a wealth of experience around LinkedIn, recruitment, moving roles, transformation of one industry to another, breaking out, those sorts of people. And make sure you make them aware that you are in the 2x2 club. Call it out. Hi, David. I'm sure you get messages like this all the time from people who want to get out of their business, get out of one role and move into another. And I've no doubt most of them do nothing with that advice. I imagine that's incredibly frustrating. I'm not that person. I want to get out. I want to take, but I don't have the money to pay you right now, or whatever. Or maybe you can, I don't know. But I don't have the money right now. But when I do, I'm coming back to you. But how do I get started? What's number one idea for that? And I think that is, because that's done in private, so you don't have to worry about your company finding out or anything like that. You can do that in private. And I think that is the advice I wish I'd had when I first started out.
And that's really great advice. And I think to have the courage to do that, call it out, be yourself, have that human interaction, be you, and say, I really need that help. I think it's a big step for people to take. But I can guarantee if I got a message like that, I would do everything I could in my power to help that person, irrespective of funding or not. Because I think you're right. To call that out, to be brave, take that step is a massive, massive help. And to have an introduction, be it on LinkedIn or email, that is not generic. I saw your profile, isn't it great? That's not human interaction. That's not how it works. You talked about, and I hope you don't mind me asking, you said you have ADHD, that kind of neurodivergence. Do you think there's people stuck in careers who have ADHD, think they might have ADHD, who are worried about moving forward, changing because of kind of any stigma around that, and the fact that they kind of worry they will be all over the place and kind of full on?
It's funny, right? In a corporate environment, I've never had the word ADHD addressed. Nobody in my 15 years of working in retail, or in 10 years in the police force for that matter, had any idea that I was ADHD, apart from the last 3 years I worked in the retailer. My deputy manager, who worked in the trenches with me, we had each other's back. He went on to be my best man at my wedding. I mentioned to him about a year ago, mate, I'm ADHD. I've just, I've done a self-assessment, and I'm highly likely to be ADHD. He's not formally diagnosed, and he just looked at me. It's like, you're an idiot. I was like, what? You blatantly ADHD and autistic traits, mate, and so am I, and that's why we get along. I don't know how you didn't know that. And I'm like, right, okay. You're absolutely right. In a corporate environment, I don't think that there is a negative stigma to it. I think people imagine that there's a negative stigma to it. There are individuals, I'll not label them on this show, but there are individuals who have a negative view on it. But they're a minority in this day and age. They're a small minority. And I think in a corporate environment, I just don't think it's supported, is how I put it. I don't think there's anything negative about it. I think it's not supported. And I don't think anybody in a leadership capacity understands the real power of what's possible with somebody who's ADHD. And I used to half joke. When I was running stores and building teams, I used to say I love OCD, ADHD, and autistic people in my store. I mean, there's a limit to all of that. Like, obviously, it's a scale, right? Some of it's more appropriate than others. But for the large part, I loved people who could loved following a process, didn't want to follow a process, people who were creative, people who weren't creative, because you knew what bucket they could be put in and you knew you could rely on them to do certain jobs. If I wanted a job done by the book, 100%, smashed out the park really, really fast, I can ask one guy. If I wanted to put my own spin on it and do something totally different to the rules for whatever reason, I'd ask a different person. And I knew that they would do a really professional approach to it and it would look outrageous. And I'd be able to challenge my manager and go, I know the rules said this, but look at that. And they go, yeah, put it back. But I think, and I think that's even more so in the outside world. So I think a lot of people see neurodiversity as a positive thing in the outside world now more than ever. And I certainly see it as my superpower. I genuinely thought for the longest time, it was survival in my role that had created me to be the way I was, because you have to sink or swim. And there is a truth to that, but I think the real secret behind it was that I was ADHD, and that helped me do, 3 days worth of work in one shift, because I never stopped. You'd see me thundering about the store and people would be like, what was that blur? I was like, that was Paul, because I didn't have an off switch. I didn't have a 50%. I was either in, I was on. That was it. And that for me was a real superpower. But you've got to be aware of the limitations as well. So I get criticised for not knowing my numbers and my figures as well as I should. Because why? Because they're boring. Because I don't need to know the numbers. And my brain doesn't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it. And even if I do look at them, I'm not going to absorb them because it's just not presented in a way that means anything to me. And I don't care about any of that. What I care about is my people out there. And I know that if I look after them and develop them, my store will run amazingly. And it did. Stores generally ran really well. But you'd still have to answer those questions. And that was the really tough part. So I think being aware of what your neurodiversity, your neurospiciness gives you as a benefit, and what the potential drawbacks are, the things that you don't do well as a result, and being able to articulate those too. I wish I'd been able to do that better in that environment, because maybe I could have found a better way to do these things here that I really didn't want to do. Maybe I could have gotten some support to go, do you know what, we're going to do this in a different way. We're going to talk it through rather than, you have to find the numbers or whatever. So that would be my advice: is don't worry about it being seen as a negative, because it really isn't. There are, like everybody, there are real positives to being neurodiverse or neurotypical, and there are drawbacks. And you just need to be aware of them both and be able to talk to people about them.
It's so important to be able to embrace the superpower, as you call it, and understand what really flies. You said earlier about, you're quick to learn and you want to learn everything in depth. That is a great superpower to have, because lots of people just skim over the top, think they know it, and they're not. And not knowing the numbers, I think once you recognize your superpower and where those powers fall down, that's the bit where you can turn around. If you're in the corporate world, for example, and say to a boss that this isn't my strength, I need help with that. How would you suggest I move forward? And then if you branch out into your own company, that's when you can have someone else do it. You don't need to do all those bits and understand everything, be able to have fancy pictures for everything, but know the bits that you're strong at and pass on to someone else and say, actually, numbers aren't my thing. Dear accountant, dear bookkeeper, dear whatever you want to call them, please help me make my numbers pretty.
But I remember doing that in the corporate world, and like we'd come to month end and we'd have like the managers meeting with the area manager and things like that. And I remember being really, really stressed about that meeting, not because my numbers wouldn't be good or because my performance hadn't been up to scratch. Like I ran decent stores, but I didn't know the numbers, and I couldn't tell you why I wasn't hitting the ones that I wasn't hitting. And I felt like a failure because I couldn't do that bit of the job. And I used to try and make up for it with the performance in other things so that I could gloss over that bit. It didn't work the whole time. And I remember just feeling like so much of a failure because I couldn't do those things, because my brain didn't process it. And I remember right back when I was a kid revising for exams, I'd sit and read the same page 5 times and not take a single word in. I'd sit there for an hour reading the same page, and I get to the end of the hour, I'd be like, I have no idea what I've been reading. Like, none of it's gone in. And I couldn't understand why that was. I just thought that was what everybody was like, apart from the ones that did really good at revision and loved revision. Like, oh, great, it must be lovely to love revision, but I don't. And I just stopped revising. Did all right still, to be fair. I wish I'd had that knowledge of my neurodiversity when I was in that role, because whether or not it would have given me support from other people's one thing, but knowing that's why in my head would have stopped me being so harsh on myself. Because now I just accept it, right? Okay, I'm not good at those things. Like, I'm never going to be good at them. I do what I can to manage them, but it's likely I'll always need somebody to support me with those bits and pieces. But I can definitely make up for it over here. Like, let's go and do that. That's what gets me excited. That's what I love.
And it's that energy and passion that comes through, shines through. Once you know in yourself what you're good at, what you're not good at, that makes it so much easier. And I'm sure that your children, my children, will be far better supported where there are neurodivergencies compared to when we were at school, when it was, oh, Paul, why are you not reading this book? Why aren't you taking it in? Come on, just learn it. That's the way things were. And it's great that things have changed so much.
I was the guy with the hand in the air. There was a question being asked. I had my hand in the air. Like, I haven't finished the question yet, Paul. I know the answer. Yes, but you answered the last 3 questions. I know, but I still know the answer to this one as well.
Did that make you give up when they were not picking you? Did you then stop putting your hand up?
I got told to not be that person. So I did for the longest time, till I was 17 or 18. And then I just embraced it. And I've always kind of embraced it, but I never knew why I needed to embrace it. But yeah, different era of schooling and academia back then. And still pockets of that in the world today, definitely. Certainly comprehensive.
For sure. And I think there's probably a whole podcast episode about that and education in itself, and the damage that's done to many people moving forward. Paul, thank you so much for your time. And still a bit of Stephen Bartlett and say, is there anything that we should have talked about that we haven't talked about thus far before we finish?
Wow. I think for me, the only thing that I would cover off is, if you are one of those people that are sat there right now listening to this podcast and thinking, yeah, I need to do something else, but yeah, I've got this done this week and next week's this, that and the other, and you're making excuses for not doing something about it. Ask yourself, as David said earlier on, how rusty is that nail? How much do you want to get out, and how prepared are you to do something about it? Do you need to pipe down and stop whinging on about it because you're never going to do anything about it? And I'd rather you weren't. I'd rather you didn't do that. Or do you need to actually just take that step, get over the line, do something that you're going to be thankful that you did for the rest of your life? Because one of my clients puts it, there are 2 people in this life that we need to impress. There's 8-year-old you, who with all his dreams and ambitions and hopes for life, and then there's 80-year-old you, who wants to have no regrets and have lived the best life they could. If you live your life moment to moment, impressing those 2 people, that is all you need to do. But I can guarantee, if you're stuck in a job, hating it, miserable, and making your family miserable and your life's miserable as a result, you're impressing neither of those 2 people. You need to do something. Please do. It's not worth it.
I couldn't ask for any better advice than that for myself, but all of my listeners and all my followers. Well, thank you so much for your time, your words of encouragement, your story, which I think is really, really fantastic and shows real courage to move forward and make those changes, and certainly be the chief smile supplier. I've certainly smiled an awful lot and will continue to do so. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on, David. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Take care.